traveling westbound out here near Laverne, Oklahoma, driving through the sand hills, and I'd almost call it Badlands. Doesn't look like the most nutritional area to grow a big buck, but we're headed out here to talk to Troy Bryant, his Oklahoma giant typical whitetail. Gonna relive the day, hear the story of how Troy took down the big buck who had survived the wildfires, survived the drought. Might have been living on cactus for a while out here with nothing to eat. We're gonna talk to Troy, gonna find out and maybe a few tips on how you too can grow a giant whitetail.
This is a deer we killed in 2019 here on the ranch. Kind of my once-in-a-lifetime deer. Didn't have a lot of big history, moments with this deer or anything. I ended up, we put feeders out at the beginning of September every year, and we got 2 pictures, or 2 days of pictures with this deer.
Yeah.
I think one of them in the beginning of November.
Yeah.
And then...
Did you know what you had?
No.
By the pictures?
No, I just knew he was a good deer.
Knew he's a good deer.
Knew he was a good deer. And I'm not, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not the best at scoring one or, stuff.
Yeah.
So...
well, we're not out there just to score.
Right.
We're out there for what they can feed to us, and the antlers are just extra, right?
It was. Yeah, I just knew it was a good deer. I hadn't hunted deer, and I had not shot a deer in quite a few years.
Yeah.
And whenever I saw this deer, I was putting my boy to bed, and it was one of those deer to where I asked him, I said, "Do you want to shoot that deer?" And he said, "Dad, I tell you what, if you just let me shoot a spring turkey, I'll let you have that deer."
Well, that sounds like a perfect trade.
There was no argument.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I only had 2 days of pictures and very few pictures.
What did you shoot him with?
I shot him with a 300 Weatherby mag.
300 Weatherby mag. How far away was he?
He was 300 yards.
300 yards.
He had a good 300 yards.
300 with the 300.
300 with the 300.
Were you heart beeping, heart thumping about out of your chest?
It was. I had to pull my eye out of the scope about 5 times to take a deep breath, because it had finally the moment was finally there. It was opening day.
So a Saturday?
Saturday, I think it was November 18th, I believe. Yeah. That Friday evening, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go out and see if I just see any sign or see if I see any deer in the area, because I was going to go back, I was going to go hunt opening morning. Went out, I did not see a deer.
Yeah.
And did not see a deer. So I thought, you know what, he's nowhere in the area. Saturday morning, I went out, and there was a few smaller bucks, and there was some hot doe around. So, but he was nowhere to be seen. So I thought, you know what, there's hot doe, he's not here.
Matter of time.
That or he's pie-eyed.
Yeah.
My boy had a basketball game, little junior high, or a little league basketball game.
Yeah.
During the day, and it was about, he'd played one game and he was about to play the second. It was about 1 o'clock, and I asked my wife, said, "Do you mind if I go sit?"
Honey, I need to head to the deer stand.
I said, "Do you mind if I go sit?" And she said, "Go get after him."
Yeah.
So I left there at 1 or a little after. Went home, I got set up, and I shot that deer right around 3 o'clock.
Right around 3 o'clock. So you said you put some feed out. September, you put a feeder out or
we
something?
do. The boys like looking at cameras, and this was before we had any cell phone cameras or anything, so we'd go, that's just part of the family event, that we'd go collect SIM cards and look at pictures. And
being raised right here on the ranch, that's a great thing to do.
Yes, it is. A lot of fun.
Hunting, fishing on the river, probably some.
Yes. We've been very, very fortunate to live out here and get to experience the things. Yes.
Well, it's a completely different area than what I'm used to. And the supplemental value out of the ground, nutrient-wise, as sandy as the soil is, this guy probably wasn't getting a bunch out of the ground. But you'd been through almost like desert rainfall amounts, hardly any rain, correct?
Yes.
And you had an extreme fire the year before?
2017, we had the fire, and then literally 2 weeks after the fire, it took off raining. And we had a just unbelievable year of moisture. And so we had this deer on camera from a neighbor, and this deer grew a lot.
How far away was the neighbor from where you got him from?
Probably a mile.
A mile, okay. So it didn't travel too far.
It didn't travel too far.
Yeah. So you had a great year on the regrowth after the fire.
Yes.
A neighbor had pictures of him the year before.
One picture.
One picture.
One picture.
So he stayed pretty well hidden.
He did.
You guys have a couple thousand acres on the ranch, right?
There's a little over 4,000.
A little over 4,000. So you guys should have had pretty decent surveillance.
Yes.
And if one neighbor had pictures.
Now then, come to find out,
Yeah.
there was a government trapper that had seen him,
Okay.
and but
Yeah.
never did tell us.
Now, Boone and Crockett, you had this deer officially scored, Boone and Crockett, and he was over 200 gross, correct?
It was 201 and 6.8.
201 and 6.8, and netted in the mid 190s?
I think 191. I'd have to look.
Okay. I was thinking I might have read 194 on the Boone and Crockett website, 194 and change. Said it's the second largest typical ever killed in Oklahoma.
It's pretty neat.
That is pretty neat. That is pretty neat.
But records are meant to be broken.
Records are meant to be broken. These tines, you folks sitting at home watching this might not realize it, but the tines, you know, what is he, a mainframe 12? Plus a couple little points at the base, split brow tine. I could see they might have scored 14 or 15 points off of it.
I need to find that sheet, but it was, it was real close too.
Until you stand by a deer of this size, you really don't know how big it is. And your pictures, I remember after you harvested the deer, you sent me some pictures. I told you that deer was north of 180.
And I've had quite a few people tell me that 180.
But I had no idea he was this size. And you probably didn't when you pulled the trigger, did you?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't. I just knew he was a good deer.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, Rustin Hayes, came in and scored him whenever we were at church one day. And whenever he got back, he said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "I guess." And
Yeah.
and he told me, he said, "Well, I got him at over 200." So
Yeah. Yeah. So after he was officially, after your buddy Rustin scored him and word got out about the buck, you probably had newspaper, you probably had different magazines, Whitetails.
North American Whitetail and
North American
some other
Whitetail.
stuff reached out. And
Yeah.
so it was a neat experience.
I'm sure. And I can only assume that you probably got some offers to let the deer leave your house, but you chose to keep him in your house.
I did, and funny thing is, I showed that picture to one person,
Yeah.
and just to see what he was,
Yeah.
and he called me that morning or the week before, and he offered me a lot of money for this deer, and he said, "I'll tell you though," he said, "if I was you, I wouldn't take it."
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to, but.
Well, I'm glad he's on your wall. I know your boys, your wife, your brother, your nephew. Everybody harvests some good deer out here throughout the years.
They do.
Is there an age requirement that you guys go by to try and let them get to a certain point before harvest?
I really like to shoot a 4.5 or older, and if you get anything older, it's a plus to keep them.
Yeah.
It's real hard to pattern a deer out here. Very, very seldom do you pattern a deer and you be able to sit on that pattern, and he make the same pattern daily. Now then, you'll get a feeder buck in October, and maybe beginning in November, and then you can have deer 7 miles off. I mean, these deer around here, they travel.
Okay.
And so when one stays on the ranch, then that's a big plus. But we do have we've been very, very fortunate to have some really, really good deer out here. My wife has killed some really good deer.
Yeah.
In fact, she said that she was now finished and going to let the boys take over, and which that's been fun to see the transition.
My wife has taken a few throughout a 10-year time period. In the past, I think 2008 was the last one she shot, and it was a big 9-point, really nice 9-point. But she has let the boys, and of course myself. You know, I love to take a whitetail every now and then. But back to your nutrition in this area. The farther east you go in Oklahoma, the better the ground is.
Yes.
And you guys don't have cropland around here.
There's not a lot of cropland. There's a little bit of cropland here and there, but there's not a lot of cropland around here.
Well, he had to have a tremendous set of genetics.
He did.
And then the age factor. Do you know how old the buck was?
I sent you a picture of those, of the jaws, but I believe he was
Me
5.5.
looking at the picture, I thought he might have been a 6-year-old, but I didn't know if any game warden or if anybody ever told you any specifics.
I can't recall that, because the dog got him out of the back of the Ranger.
The dog got him out of the Ranger.
Chewed it up.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, it was a neat experience.
Once in a lifetime.
Once in a lifetime.
If you get another one, invite me out. I want to see you.
Okay. You know, it's funny, you see some deer that on camera or at a feeder, and you know that they have the same genetics. I mean, they are spitting images of this little guy.
Yeah.
And
of this little guy with 14-inch G2s.
And they're and you know, and some deer that we've taken in the past.
Yeah.
That just, you know, that they're the same genetics, and we're very blessed to have those genetics around here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm grateful you let me come out, and I hope the folks at home enjoy watching. If they don't, they're not whitetail fanatics.
Well, Justin, you're always welcome out here.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, did you ever find any good shed antlers? While you're out, I see you ride horseback a bunch, and you're always looking. Do you find some good shed antlers?
We do find some shed antlers every once in a while. You know, a lot of times along fence lines and around some old feeders and stuff.
About most of the work you do out here off horseback with the cows?
It is. We do all our cattle work on horseback. That's the way we were taught and raised, and we grew up doing that, and so we try to keep that going.
Yeah. Your dad's got to be very proud.
Well, I hope
both
so.
of you boys, mom and dad both.
I hope so. We sure enjoy it, and just blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, great. Thanks again, Troy.
Thank you, Justin.